make some sense of it all, but I can see it makes no sense at all. Is it cool to go to sleep on the floor? 'Cause I don't think that I can take anymore. Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you.
Good morning, everyone. Lots going on as usual. Today is, what day is it? Saturday, January 10th, 2025. An interprovincial trade war about whiskey. Yeah. I mean, not that it wasn't on my bingo card. Doug Ford was pouring out all the whiskey and talking tough to Crown Royal when they were talking about removing their plant from Ontario, and it's ridiculous. We were supposed to get free interprovincial trade, and instead we get a interprovincial trade war on all sorts of different things, and alcohol included. And people like Crown Royal, and it's one of those things which seems like it's supposed to be distracting us. Iran updates: the internet is down. Trump is talking about what's going on. Starlink is providing a communication corridor, but it's a very, very narrow one, so there's not a lot coming out. But what's coming out looks like the regime's losing control. Trump said, we'll step in if they start killing people. So interesting times. Day 12 of the Persian uprising, and they've restored the Iranian flag from prior to the revolution, which is the sun and lion. So that's an interesting thing. They being Twitter, X, and we'll get to them in just a minute. Carney's off to China because screw the USMCA. Because who cares, said Carney, right? To quote Carney, he's going to China while Trump is dismantling the communist funding organization worldwide. Interesting choice. I feel like it's a mistake, and I feel like the Canadian public are going to pay for it. I hope I'm wrong about that. White people need not apply unless you're gay or disabled. And I wish I was kidding, but I'm sure not. So I'm going to show you that. We'll talk about that in our grab bag of governance. And of course, where we've got to start today is United Kingdom and Australia are actively moving towards banning X. The United Kingdom yesterday woke up saying, we have to ban X. And by the time I had gone to bed yesterday, they had moved forward, and Ofcom are taking charge of this whole thing. But there could be consequences, as yesterday also there were threats of sanctions for England, sanctions for Keir Starmer. I don't know if Keir Starmer himself, but there were people saying, if you move forward with this, we are going to have a whole package of sanctions for you, and it's not going to be good for you, so don't do it. So we'll see, and I feel like this battle is just getting warmed up, and what am I going to talk about if they ban X? It's going to be difficult to pull an hour's worth of content out of nothing. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Anyway, lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, Elon Musk is talking about Basil the Great. Basil the Great says the UK Labour government, Keir Starmer, is threatening to block X, but won't say a word about ChatGPT and Gemini. Why? So the reason that they want to ban X is because you can prompt Grok to put somebody in a bathing suit, and people were putting all sorts of people in bathing suits. It was like an internet craze for all of 5 seconds. I didn't even, I'm on X all the time, and I think I saw 1 or 2 people in bathing suits, and I thought to myself, why am I looking at Matt Gaetz in a bathing suit? And I think Elon Musk was in a bathing suit, and I continued to scroll, and I didn't see any scantily clad. In fact, the post I'm showing you here with the women there, to give an example of what Gemini and ChatGPT and Grok does, that's more racy than all the ones I saw. All the ones I saw were men in bathing suits. So, hey, Grok, put Elon Musk in a bathing suit. And they would just take the picture of whoever it was and put that person into a bikini bathing suit, right? So oh no, you've got to ban X. It seems like an excuse. So Basil says the UK government is threatening to ban X, but won't say a word about ChatGPT, Gemini. And here is examples of ChatGPT, Gemini, and Grok doing exactly the same thing as each other, putting a woman into a bathing suit at a prompt. Here's Keir Starmer saying, we can't have this. X is disgusting. Darren says, by extension, all porn should be banned from the United Kingdom then. His master would never allow that, though. Starmer's lying to you. He wants digital ID. Corn serves a different purpose. Grok is part and parcel of X, and it's an excuse to get rid of a free speech platform. That other thing is a destructive mechanism to the nuclear family. So anyway, here's Keir Starmer.
Disgraceful. It's disgusting. And it's not to be tolerated. X has got to get a grip of this. And Ofcom have full support to take action in relation to this. This is wrong. It's unlawful. We're not going to tolerate it. I've asked for all options to be on the table. It's disgusting. And X need to get their act together, and we will take action on this because it's simply not tolerable. Disgraceful. It's disgusting.
He looks like an actor acting. His eyes are like kind of bulgy. I don't know. When you watch Trump talk, he looks thoughtful. And here, Starmer looks under pressure. And the bulgy eyes are just weird. What's up with that? Here's the British Patriot, and it says, Pakistani men are raping white children every day with impunity, but for Keir Starmer, X is the problem. Ha! Good point, right? Fair point, I think. Nicholas says it's happened. The government has officially instructed Ofcom to use its powers to ban X in Britain. This is the most horrifying, brazen, and despicable attack on free speech in the Western world in decades. Keir Starmer has finally crossed the line. General election now. So will the UK be able to stop what's going on? It doesn't seem likely. Britain is broken is sharing this. I think this is the Ofcom boss. X to be banned in the United Kingdom within days. Ofcom's next step on Grok should come in days, not weeks. Secretary for Technology Liz Kendall, I think that's her, says if they ban X, we take to the streets, says Britain is broken. Mark my words, Keir Starmer. Here we go.
Obscene image.
Oh, sorry, we'll back this up a bit.
So how long will you give X to make sure that you can't make controversial or obscene images behind a paywall? How long is the government going to give X to stop that?
Well, I expect Ofcom to take its next steps in days, not weeks. The government is crystal clear. We want those images taken down. They are despicable, they are abhorrent, and we will ensure that the full force of the powers of the law that we have given Ofcom, we want to see those used.
Are there any steps that can be, well outline some of those steps. What can Ofcom do? Just explain to people what are the measures and powers available to Ofcom that would bring this to an end.
They can investigate the service, they can issue enforcement action, and if that enforcement action is not complied with, they can fine the platform £18 million or 10% of their worldwide revenue, whichever is greater. But there are also powers in the Online Safety Act which enable Ofcom to block those services being made available to people in the UK. And as I said, we would want to ensure Ofcom uses the full range of powers that it has, but we as a government are taking additional action because we are determined to ensure women and girls are as safe online as we want them to be safe in the real world. No ifs, no buts.
So you're saying that it's possible or it's likely that if X don't move on this, then the platform could be banned?
Well, I am sure Ofcom is determined to ensure the law is enforced. They will take all the necessary steps that they have been, with the powers given to them by Parliament, and I am sure that we will see those steps in days, not weeks.
Okay, so you can hear she's been told what to say. You can hear the kind of buzzwords, days, not weeks. She's also not committing to banning X. She's kind of, we're gonna keep people safe. We're gonna do what's necessary. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. They're not gonna escape this. And so, the implication is, yes, we could ban X, but they're not saying it directly because they don't want the sanctions to start until they ban X, which is gonna happen in days, not weeks. There you go. They're very, very serious about this. Michael says, isn't it ironic that the UK threatens to shut down X on the same day Iran shut down the internet to prevent its people from criticizing the regime? The irony of our times. Something will fill in for X. They won't be able to stop people sharing information. Although they will be able to put a monkey wrench into it if they shut down X worldwide, which they're looking to do. Rupert says, I urge Elon Musk and J.D. Vance and the wider American administration to deploy whatever appropriate powers they hold to prevent Keir Starmer from banning X in Britain. Free speech must be protected, and such disgusting authoritarianism must be resisted. We need help. And that was January 9th at 3:37 p.m. Before that, however, I saw this tweet, 10:32 a.m. GB News is reporting Britain, threatened with U.S. sanctions if Labor bans X. Quote, there will be consequences. That was from Representative Luna, and I read the tweet yesterday, so I don't want to rehash it again today, but that's where that comes from. She was talking about, like, if they dare do this, there will be consequences. And I don't doubt it. I think that Vance has said that there will be consequences as well, but I don't remember the particulars of that. GB News is also reporting an interview with Nigel Farage. Here's Nigel Farage discussing the X ban.
The thought of banning X from a government that's been attacking free speech and creating a two-tier society in our country, frankly, is appalling. Look, this feature clearly is horrible in every way, distasteful, sick. I get all of that. I know that X today have made some changes to say only paying subscribers can use the service. X will need to go further, but the thought of banning platforms, I mean, what is happening in 21st century Britain?
And then the follow-up, you've supported victims of grooming gangs and sexual-based violence. Will you also take a stand against X, as it is allowing these degrading images on their platform?
Look, I think the whole grooming gangs scandal, and here we are in London, where it's yet to be uncovered, in the opinion of Reform UK. Of course, what is happening with this capacity on X is monstrous. But banning X is not the answer. Talking to them and saying, we can't live with this, that's the way forward.
There are much worse services. Don't Google this. But if you did Google something to the effect of, if I have a picture of my crush, can I make an AI avatar just like Geordie LaForge and what's her face, Dr. Brahms, right? Like, every time you touch the engine, you're touching me, Geordie. Like, this is a little inappropriate. Is this a good reason to ban an entire platform? Like, maybe if X was allowing me to create a sexual plaything from a photograph, like, okay, yeah, sure, yeah, maybe that's something we should take off the X platform, maybe get closer to the whole free speech thing you were doing, Elon. There are other platforms that kind of do that, and worse. I'm sure there's worse out there. I'm sure of it. And so the idea that, like, oh, this is like putting women in bathing suits is monstrous. I haven't seen anything worse. Is there something worse? Am I missing something? Send it my way. If I've missed this, if Grok is making sexually degrading images of women based on a photograph, like, send it my way, because like, it shouldn't do that, right? But the idea of banning X for an AI putting people into different clothing, and some of that clothing is a bathing suit. Well, that's weird, right? Like, that's a weird thing. And I think that it's a bullshit excuse to ban a platform that gives an audience to your potential political rivals, right? Whereas if the government owns BBC One, BBC Two, all of the rest, they essentially own what is said, right? Whereas on X, they do not. And so that's interesting. British Intel says, watch 7 police cars. This is going along. This isn't an X-ban thing, but this is speech, and this is cracking down on citizens who are trying to assert what England is, what Britain is, and wanting it to stay those things. And the police are showing up to say, no, do you have a license for that flag, sir? British Intel says 7 police cars deployed over English flag in Birmingham. 7 police vehicles and more than a dozen officers were sent to a street in Birmingham after reports of an English flag being attached to a public lamppost. No violence, no threats, no crime in progress. 7 police cars deployed, over a dozen officers on the scene. The trigger was an English flag in public. 0 risk to public safety. This is the reality of modern policing priorities in England. Britain, where symbols of national identity prompt an emergency-style response while serious crime goes unchecked. Very concerning. Very interesting. The Noticer says Senator Ralph Babet has warned Australians rumors are circulating in Canberra that the government is in high-level talks to permanently ban X. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and opposition leader Susan Ley have both since spoken out to condemn the platform for allowing Grok to, quote, digitally undress women. I'm not saying that platforms should be able to digitally undress women. I'm saying there's way worse out there. And targeting Grok and X for this, weird. Seems Orwellian. To quote the Pope, here's Pope Leo, and I think the Pope works for the globalists, so it's kind of weird to quote Pope Leo, but here we are. 2026 is an odd one. Pope Leo saying, hey, these Orwellian speech laws need to go.
It is painful to see how, especially in the West, the space for genuine freedom of expression is rapidly shrinking. At the same time, a new Orwellian-style language is developing, which, in an attempt to be increasingly inclusive, ends up excluding those who do not conform to the ideologies that are fueling it. It is painful to see.
Yeah, so did I say Leon or Leo? It's Leo, Pope Leo. So if I said Leon, sorry about that. China, let's talk about China, because this is Mark Carney's priority. Number one top priority is China. And that's weird because Trump's number one top priority is toppling communist regimes. So super weird. And Trump said, and I don't know, I thought I tagged it, but I don't remember seeing it when I sorted my show here this morning. Trump has said, we can't have China as our neighbor in Greenland, right? And I looked at the map of Greenland, and Greenland's our neighbor. And if we're China, or controlled by China, de facto controlled by China, then Trump said that's intolerable. So if all of these other communist dictatorships, Cuba, Venezuela, Iran, these dictatorships are being toppled, is Canada really going to firm up, and the United Kingdom as well? Are they really going to firm up into these new communist dictatorships? Like, we lost Venezuela and we lost Iran, but we got Canada and the United Kingdom. So, fair trade? Like, what? That doesn't make any sense. That's crazy town, right? So, but here we are. And so let's talk about China, because that's Carney's number one priority at the moment, which is, again, super weird, right? Shouldn't you be focusing on getting the USMCA done? Because that's the biggest ROI, and that's where a lot of our trade already is. Why would we start selling into China? Like, most Canadians don't speak Chinese. It would be hard to retool my website to talk about Chinese politics. Like, Andy Lee says members of the Canada-China Business Council and Mark Carney's top donors at Power Corporation have landed in China to pre-pave a path to success for him. The regime has found its new Manchurian candidate. This is why they won't put a foreign agent registry into effect. What a coincidence that they all ended up in China together. So this is Scott Bryson, the vice chair of the Canadian-China Business Council. I guess Bank of Montreal was too pedestrian for him. And Oliver D., chair of the Canada-China Business Council. So these guys are in China, paving the way for Mark Carney to have a successful trip of empty promises. Dean says, let me get this straight. Mark Carney is heading to China next week to, quote, expand relations with a regime that commits massive human rights abuses, engages in industrial espionage, steals intellectual property, manipulates its currency, spies on our citizens, interferes in our elections, and sets up secret police operations on Canadian soil. And the reward, a visit from Canada's Prime Minister. Meanwhile, the United States is apparently the partner we should keep at arm's length. Makes total sense. What could possibly go wrong? And then he's got an upside down smiley face. And this is in response to Carney to meet with Xi in China next week. I view this as him going to kowtow to Xi next week and get tapped on the head and, get his next set of orders. It doesn't seem like Carney's his own man directing his own country. It seems like he works for the globalists, and maybe the globalists are just communists. I'm not sure. Tom says, Prime Minister Carney is headed off on yet another foreign trip. He's going to China to visit communists, Qatar to visit Islamists, and Davos to visit globalists. Do you see what's happening now? Yeah, yes, unfortunately, I do see what's happening now. It's terrifying, and I hope we're able to stop it. I also see what's happening in Iran, and I know that even after 46 years of brutal dictatorship, it's going to end. Their power is not going to last forever. These lunatics are going to lose over a timeline that I hope I'm alive to watch, because I can see these people clearly, and they deserve to lose badly. Ryan is responding to Brookfield having laid the groundwork for the Qatari visit. Ryan says, it's probably just a coincidence that Qatar and Brookfield recently announced a $20 billion investment partnership, and Carney is heading there in coming weeks. Just a coincidence, though. Brookfield and Kai form $20 billion strategic investment partnership for AI infrastructure. Interesting, right? Here's Pierre Poilievre, and he's talking about Venezuelan oil and the impact on Canada. It's a 7 minute and 20-second long video, and I'm only going to listen to about 2 minutes of it. He's making the case that Canada needs to move fast and get our oil to tidewater. Otherwise, we're going to miss an opportunity, and Venezuelan oil is going to replace Canadian oil in the United States. I don't think that it's that dire. My question is the same question I always ask. Why did he, as the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, hide Andrew Scheer behind the curtains in order to pass the Liberal budget? He had an opportunity to bring down the government, and he chose not to do it. And he did that twice during that budget period of time. Max was explaining the other one, where Pierre Poilievre's Conservatives voted with the Liberals against the other opposition parties, and had the Conservatives voted with the opposition parties, you would have had an election. And so I don't trust him. It makes me think that this is shadowboxing, just like Jagmeet Singh used to do. It would be like getting excited about something Jagmeet Singh says on the internet, when in the House of Commons he votes with the Liberals every time. You're like, oh, I might not vote with you next time. It's like, okay, Jagmeet, but like you're going to vote with them though. But yeah, but I might not. It's like, well, yeah, but you did though. So it's the same thing, right? It's after a certain point you lose credibility, and like these guys are well past that. But I want you to see what they're talking about, just to keep you read in on the politics of everything. Here's Poilievre.
In Venezuela Saturday morning as the United States arrested Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro after a quarter century of socialist tyranny. That's a good thing. Canada did not recognize Maduro as the legitimate president of Venezuela. And with him out, we hope Venezuelans will finally be able to enjoy freedom and democracy. Now, I've called for the recognition of the legitimate winner of the 2024 election, Edmundo Gonzalez, along with the courageous hero and voice of the Venezuelan people, Maria Corina Machado, and I'll continue to do so. Ultimately, Venezuelans must be allowed to choose freedom for themselves. But this moment also resets the clock for global energy markets, and this is why it matters to Canada. For the past decade, Liberals have blocked Canada from producing the oil and gas needed to replace Venezuelan oil that the U.S. was sanctioning. Those sanctions could end soon. Venezuelan production could return to its historic levels of 3.5 million barrels per day, up from the current 1 million barrels. That additional Venezuelan oil is heavy crude, similar to Alberta's oil sands, which means it will compete directly for scarce U.S. refinery capacity. In fact, many of the refineries that use Alberta oil today used to use Venezuelan oil and may go back on it. Each Venezuelan barrel the Americans take could be 1 barrel less they take from us. So we need other customers fast. That's why we must immediately move to approve a pipeline to the Pacific Coast. Prime Minister Carney has not clearly stated that he would support such a pipeline. His only commitment in his memorandum of understanding with Premier Danielle Smith is to declare such a pipeline to be a project in the national interest that can be referred to the Major Projects Office for consideration of designation under the Building Canada Act.
And we're going to look at a timeline for that later in the show today. 23 minutes. Oh, I got to say goodbye to the stream. We'll finish. No, we won't finish Venezuela. We'll do a bit more Venezuela, and then I'll say goodbye to the stream. I like to finish it off proper. Here is Trump and Rubio talking about Cuba, and they say, FAFO, Cuba, you have a choice to make.
A choice to make. They can either have a real country with a real economy where their people can prosper, or they can continue with their failing dictatorship that's going to lead to systemic and societal collapse. So it's a very stark and dramatic choice, and it's one we hope to make the right one. We don't have an interest in a destabilized Cuba, but that would be their fault because they refuse to allow the people of Cuba to have either economic or political freedom for that matter.
And you have a lot of people in this country that want to go back to Cuba and help Cuba. A lot of people have left, they came in.
A choice to make.
I've seen Trump talk to rooms full of Cubans. I've seen Trump talk to rooms full of Haitians. The Cubans come up to him at the end, and the Haitians come up to him at the end, and they say, the Haitians less. But the thing I saw was talking about how the Cuban guy wanted to go back and fix Cuba, and the things that have happened. Or maybe it was a Haitian guy talking about the Clinton administration and how they've destroyed Haiti, and if they could self-govern, things would be better. And same with Cuba, though. The people who come, they don't want to allow their country to be taken over by the communists forever, they want to go back and fix it. You know what I'm saying? I hope we don't have to be outside of the country. I hope we don't have to leave Canada, flee Canada, in order to wait out the communist regime in Canada until the people are done here. Right? Could be a long time, but over a long enough timeline, the idiot communists lose. With that, I've got to say goodbye. This guy's talking about a first-hand account of the Cubans encountered in Venezuela against the U.S. military, and it's crazy. Basically, the guy says you don't want to mess with the U.S. military. They've got technology like you wouldn't believe, like unbelievable technology, straight out of science fiction, but here we are experiencing it. So if you want the whole show, head over to CanadaPoly.com. If you don't, that's okay. I'll be around tomorrow. And for everybody else, we'll hear that story in just a second as soon as I kill the stream. Done and 25:31. Okay, so this